Interval Project Internal Training. Topic: Piling work. Piling is defined as being foundations that are driven, or bored through the ground, along a certain length of area to carry and transfer loads to soil considered to be weak in structure due to the soil conditions. Piles are generally used when the bearing capacity of the soil is considered to be inadequate for structural load of heavy construction. Piling type: 1. RC square pile, 2. RC spun pile, and 3. Bored pile. Square pile. Square pile used in foundation to increase the bearing capacity, and to reduce settlement at sites with weak compressible soil. It can be used in industrial and civil construction, railway, highway, bridge. The most suitable type of soil is saturated clay. Spun pile. Spun pile is a pre-stressed concrete pile with circular hollow section widely used in construction. Spun pile can be used in high-rise building, bridge, marine structure, power station school at various type of soil. Bore pile was installed in the ground by a variety of method. It is specified for buildings and other structures that impose loads in the thousands of tons. Bore pile suitable for fine-grained soil or silt soil condition. There are 4 main items in piling work procedure. First, Nakano PIC work task. Second, preparation. Third, construction. And fourth, pile testing. RC square pile. First, Nakano PIC work task. Project manager is responsible for overall contractual, technical, quality and safety performance of the project. Assistant project manager to planning and monitoring overall site construction activities, safety and environmental issue. QA/QC engineer or site supervisor to conduct inspection with clerk of work, and assisting project manager with regard to technical and quality issues. Surveyor responsible to setting out work. Second, preparation. 1. Piling location checks. 2. Preparation of test piling. 3. Stock material at site. Third, construction. 1. For product inspection, we must check the pile type, size and grade. We also need to check pile tagging, length and date casting. 2. Inspection report must be available for pile machine and hammer weight. We need to indicate spray mark at hammer casing on pile machine, to ensure hammer height. 3. Paint marking on every interval 500 mm on all piles length to indicate the pile position. We must to ensure the standard pile deviation is below 75 mm tolerance. 4. Ask for the prior check by structure consultant for the measurement control of penetration amount. Control the hammer height to adjust the height approved. Use template spray mark for the piling point based on piling point. Welding joint for pile using 2.6 mm welding rod underflow voltage for the first layer of welding joint. Use 5 mm for second layer and then removing slag by chipping hammer at each layer. Clean using wire brush and allow 5 minutes to reduce heat temperature. Then, continue with rust painting and followed by driven pile. For final set, take graph reading 3 times and record reduced amount of subsidence. Fourth, pile testing. Static load test. The objectives of this test is: first, to determine settlement under working load. Second, to determine ultimate bearing capacity. And third is to ascertain proof of acceptability. Static load test procedure. SLT set out. Checking hydraulic jack dimension. Monitoring loading. SLT set out. Pile driving analyzer test, PDA. The purpose of PDA test is to find out bearing force and pile condition by axial distortion of pile itself, and acceleration signal from PDA system program. Strain gauge and accelerometer are the equipment used for PDA test. Pile integrity test, PIT. Pile integrity test, PIT, is also placed an accelerometer on top of pile as PDA test. Micro-strain elastic wave by the impact from handheld hammer, assess crack on pile or cross-section, to define the pile condition healthy or damaged. Spun pile. Platform and general requirements. Nakano person in charge shall provide proper access and egress to site has to been ensured for machine mobilization. Nakano person in charge checks underground utility cable, pipe, drain on the site, if any, shall be repositioned. Piling work shall only commence upon satisfaction of the platform and clearance requirements. For example, normal or center injection works shall require for minimum clearance from the edge of site boundary, wall or slope to the piling points as below. Side jack-in works, if required, shall require for minimum clearance from the edge of site boundary wall and or slope to the piling point as shown in the figure. Survey work. Setting out pile positions would be marked or checked by the surveyor with reference to the grid lines. The pile position will be pegged using a mild steel bar. Safety procedure for piling operator. Injection machines and cranes will be operated by trained and authorized operator. Ensure that the machine is correctly maintained. Report all defects immediately. Check all hydraulic jacks and wire ropes for wear, at frequent intervals. Before operation, check all rig motions. Ensure machine is on firm and level ground. Before hoisting, ensure that the pile is being lifted at the lifting hooks. Work only with an authorized signalman and operate to his signals. Do not react to the signals from unauthorized persons, except in an emergency. Check for obstructions and men in the vicinity of the rig before hoisting and pitching. Before unloading from and loading to any vehicles, ensure the driver is out of the cab unless this is special protection. Also, make sure that the driver of vehicle is in full view of machine operator before the load is lifted. Prior to establishment of plant, ensure that there are no overhead obstructions and that the working surface and access are suitable for operation of our machine. Preparation for pile installation. Piles should be stored on site, within the operating radius of the injection machine. A pile layout drawing and specification, relating to the contract are available. The injection machine shall be established at the pile position. The pile peg shall be offset by marking two pegs, which are perpendicular to each other, for checking the position of pile after pitching. Hoisting and installation of pile shall be carried out based on piling machine specification. The correct verticality of the pile position relative to the reference pins shall be checked. Pile inclination is checked using a spirit level. Recording. Recording shall be done by machine operator and request inspection arrangement by Nakano person in charge. The recording sheet shall be approved by the clerk of work. On completion of the pile installation, all necessary information shall be recorded and the summary pile record sheet can be completed. If the pile has not been driven as expected, has been obstructed or does not conform to the specification, this shall be recorded in the remark column. Maintain load test by using injection machine as Kentledge. Injection machine, steel counterweight and steel beam sections makes up the whole static load test system, in which the independent hydraulic jack impose vertical force on the test pile. Method of testing and loading. Prior to testing, load test equipment should be completely setting out on firm ground. The hydraulic jack shall be placed directly on top of the centroid of a mild steel plate, which rests directly on top of the pile. The loading cycle, loading increment and the holding time are all subject to final confirmation from the engineer. Movement of the pile head shall be measured by 4 dial gauges. Jack-in is also a piling system, whereby every pile point is self-tested during installation. The interpretation of results shall subject to engineer confirmation. Board pile. General description of board pile. The board piling technique consists of constructing circular pile from the existing ground level using hydraulic machine under stabilized fluid condition. Concrete is poured using TREMI method by installing TREMI pipe to pile toe. During the concrete pouring by TREMI method, the concrete shall then displace the stabilized fluid while concurrent will draw to the nearest plant for recycling. Construction procedure. Pile setting or position. Temporary casing installation. Boring works. Installation of steel reinforcement steel cages. Casting works. Extraction of temporary casing. Pile setting or position. The boring rig shall mobilize to the intended bored pile location. At least 2 or more offset positions shall be marked by specialist bored pile workers by using the surveyed point by surveyor as reference. These offset points are mainly to be used as the guidance to determine the exact location of the bored piles. Temporary casing installation. Soil augers shall be used to bore until a stable or hard layer of soil is achieved. Then, the temporary casing is slotted by service crane into the bored hole, with the guidance of earlier offset points to set the exact location of bored piles. The service crane will then unhook the temporary casing, and later will use vibro hammer to install the required size casing. Verticality of the temporary casing shall be monitored from 2 perpendicular angles, by site supervisor or QA/QC engineer or site engineer judging from the offset pile location. The temporary casing is driven into the soil until approximately the top of casing is 0.6 meters above existing ground level. If the soil strata underneath the temporary casing is unstable or collapsed, temporary casing extension or stabilize the soil strata with polymer slurry shall be adapted. Boring work. Boring work shall be carried by using appropriate boring tools based on the ground condition. Verticality of bored hole can be assessed by looking at the position of the Kelly bar relative to the temporary casing. Bored hole is vertical if the Kelly bar is right in the center of temporary casing. Polymer shall be supplied to the bored hole regularly as the stabilizing fluid. The level of polymer in the bored hole shall be at least similar to existing ground level. When rock layer is encountered during boring, coring tools shall be deployed, such as core barrel or roller bit. Rock shall be tested with at least 3 samples and verified by engineer. Soil sample shall be collected at interval not exceeding 5 meters. The collected samples for soil and rock will be marked and stored accordingly. Verticality of bored pile shall check regularly. If any depth registered excessive deviation comparative to the requirement, the bored hole will be trimmed with core barrels of equal diameter to achieve the desired tolerance. Upon completion of the bored pile, request for inspection will carry out to measure the depth of bored hole with consultant's representative by using measuring tape. The bored hole will be left for approximately an hour to allow for the sedimentation of the soil particle to occur as common characteristic exercised when using polymer. The base of the bored pile shall be cleaned by using cleaning bucket, and the final depth shall be measured, and confirmed by site client or consultant representatives. Installation of steel reinforcement cage. Depth to be lowered is determined by the difference of existing ground level, and cutoff level of the pile. Casting works. Approved concrete mix discharged into the bored holes, via the hopper and TREMI pipes which displace the sludge and stabilized fluid. TREMI pipe is embedded inside the concrete at least 3 meters during the casting works. The depth of concrete rise is measured regularly, to determine the number of TREMI pipes to be dismantled. Concrete shall overcast approximately 1 meter above cutoff level. This is to ensure the concrete cutoff level is sound. All the TREMI pipes shall be withdrawn after the completion of casting. Extraction of temporary casing. Service crane will lift the double jaw vibro hammer and mount to the temporary casing. After the extraction of casing, the bored hole will be left open temporarily, and backfilled with soil until existing ground level. Polymer slurry. Basically, the slurry consists of a uniform mixture of polymer and water plus eventually the additives. A laboratory is provided on site for regular testing of the slurry. The minimum frequency of testing and the acceptable range of physical characteristics of the polymer slurry are to be according to the table below. Apparatus available in the site laboratory includes the following: mud balance test, Fluid viscosity test. pH test. Thank you for watching.